Hello and welcome to my first reading wrap-up video. I've read 7 books in November. It's been a bit of a weak month overall, I think, and I'm not sure whether that's because I normally read more books, so books that I enjoyed less are drowned out a little bit, or whether it's because of the books that I've read. I had an average rating of 3.29, and let's go through and find out why. This will be spoiler free, so don't worry, but if you definitely don't want to know anything at all, then maybe skip over the sections where I'm talking about books that you are fancying reading. The first book that I read in November, and to be honest, the book that I enjoyed the most was Fourth Wing. Now, I have been delaying this for about a year now because I've seen so many people criticizing it if you come from a place of genuinely enjoying fantasy. And to be honest, I have read a lot of romantasy in the past, but I haven't really read much in the last year. I sort of OD'd on it, and the last thing I needed at that time was another romantasy book. But I picked up this November because I wanted something fun. If I just shut my brain down and go in from the perspective of, let's just have a good time, it's probably going to be predictable, but let's just try to have some fun. And I'm pleased to announce that that mindset for this book did work for me. I gave this book a 4-star rating, and in hindsight, it might even be a 4.25 for me. I do my ratings on Storygraph so that I can use my point ratings, because it was getting frustrating to me that I couldn't differentiate between something that was more a 3.5 versus something that was a 4.5. There's a big gap between those. I did find this book predictable. I didn't tab it at all, however, I did annotate inside some of the pages, and I predicted a lot of the main things that would happen, but that didn't lessen my enjoyment of the book. It was, I think, relatively well written in comparison to some romantasy books I have read where it's a little bit basic. Is it perfectly written? No, it's not perfectly written, but I don't think I've read enough romantasy recently for me to really judge the quality of the language in comparison to others in its genre. This might have kickstarted something in me because I did pick up The Crimson Moth, which is also known as Heartless Hunter, and so I might be going down another romantasy rabbit hole. I hope so, because I did used to really like them. I'd had enough. I was like, I can't read another one. But I think this is bringing me back. I can completely understand why some people are getting into reading through these books, because it has brought me back to this genre. I would like to say though, and again, this isn't a spoiler, the character Dane, there must be a lot of people who feel the same way about Dane that I do. I completely understand his logic throughout the book. I understand it. But how many times does a girl need to tell him? How many times does Violet need to go, stop? The next 2 books that I read were Five Broken Blades and the sequel book, Four Ruined Realms. This first book I gave 3.75 stars. I did enjoy it. It didn't amaze me. I don't think it's one that I'm going to think about too often, but it was enjoyable. And then the second book I gave 3.25 stars, which is a pretty big drop off. And a lot of the complaints that I have with this trilogy do show themselves more in the second book. Maybe it redeemed itself in the third book, however, I have soft DNF'd because the complaints that I had at the time were a bit too much for me to work through. It's the sort of thing that will fade over time, and I probably will complete the trilogy, but I am in no rush to do so. These books are about 6 main characters, and let's see if I can remember all their descriptions off the top of my head. We have a thief, a thug for hire, an exiled prince, a spy master, a lord, and a poison maiden. So a very interesting ragtag bunch, and it's kind of heist style, so I know a lot of people do like the heist style books. This might be for you. They are tasked and they are recruited by some unknown person to try and kill this immortal king, which is the older brother of the exiled prince. Now let's start with some positives. There were 3 characters in particular that I did really like in these books. I really liked Eri, the thief, Royo, the strongman or thug for hire, and Sora, the poison maiden. There were other characters too that I did enjoy, but those were the 3 perspectives that I did like the most. Now the problem with the perspectives is that each of those 6 characters, you read chapters from their perspectives, And that's a lot, especially when you're starting to get into a book and you're chopping and changing through the chapters quite a bit. You don't have time to really get to know the characters. And the other drawback of this, which I felt a lot more in the second book, was that you're getting a lot of the same information twice because you've watched something happen from one character's perspective, and then three other characters have something that they want to say about it in their minds. And I think it is quite difficult to balance not repeating yourself too much whilst also wanting your characters to have all of their opinions, because they are going to have opinions on the matter. And I can't imagine being an author and wanting to silence one of the six babies that I have. So I wouldn't say that this is a bad story. I found the plot interesting. I think it is a personal problem for me with the writing style. I think a lot of people will like this book. And I did like this first one, and the plot was still good in the second one. I just found some of the slight tediums from the first book more exaggerated for me in the second book. Oh, another thing that I really liked is that the exiled prince, he is both classist and sexist, and it is very refreshing to see royalty in a book genuinely exhibiting those behaviors. After reading those, I switched over to read a couple more relaxed books. It felt like a bit of a relaxed book month, if I'm honest. I read one book on my Kindle called Until the Heart Stops by Gillian Eliza West. This book is about a woman who owns an illegal blood den. She's got ancient witch powers, which has come down through her family line, and she starts to get wooed by this mysterious person who leaves parcels at her work, gifts at her work, letters at her work. She doesn't know who it is, but there's this mysterious vampire man, vampire lord, who is in the area and has caught her eye. So it's the story of those two getting together with some vampire politics involved. I gave this book 2.75 stars because even though I did enjoy the first half, the second half came up with a lot of issues for me. There was one part where I felt like this really important decision was made and then just totally glossed over. And it didn't really make any sense to me for that to just be swept under the rug. There were a lot of things that I think came down to the pacing of the book. It felt like we had this really lovely setup and build up and trying to cultivate this romance and tension, and then suddenly, in the way that some romancy books can get, it's like, oh, there's love and there's all this stuff going on, and it's like it's been a week since here and here, and I just don't understand how that all could have happened. The book was by no means bad. I was just disappointed at how certain things in the second half of the book were treated, which knocked my rating down from a 3.25 good average solid read down to 2.75. And then another fun book that I read is Obsidian. Obsidian, I gave 3.5 stars. I've held it to a different standard of rating. If I rated this against genuine adult fiction, I probably would have given this a 3 or a 2.75. However, Obsidian is essentially Twilight, but instead of vampires, it's aliens. Knowing that, you're already going in knowing what sort of vibe to expect. I honestly don't have much to say about this book. It was fine. It was what I signed up for. I just wanted something easy to read that was a little bit silly. There was one part where the main character genuinely threw a bunch of spaghetti over someone who, to be fair, was being a bit of a bitch. And I. I had no words when that happened. I had no words. We'd hit the quintessential American high school stereotype. I don't know, I have never been to an American high school. Is spaghetti thrown on people? I don't know. Let me know if you've ever had spaghetti thrown on you or have thrown spaghetti on someone else. If you did that second half, though, I really hope you had a good reason. And I don't think there are many good reasons to throw food on someone. My final serious read of the month was Yellowface, which I gave 4 stars. It made me think a lot about the publishing industry, and I have a lot of tabs on here. Most of these tabs I'm not really going to talk about. They're mostly for me. They're things I thought were a bit silly in the moment that I wanted to tell my boyfriend about, or things that I want to research. For example, the Chinese labour camps. I do want to have a read into those. I will say though that R.F. Kuang is genuinely really talented at writing unlikable characters. I love reading a book where the character is very obviously flawed and yet totally oblivious to their flaws. Like, what do you mean you think you could rename yourself to Juniper Song and get away with it? So I'd say my biggest takeaway from this book, other than the point that I will research, is that I like reading about entitled, crazy people. I did read one more book this month, but this is only the second video I've posted on YouTube with my whole face out, so I'm not quite comfortable talking about it. It definitely has nothing to do with super soldier, dinosaur shifter aliens. It has nothing to do with that. Completely unrelated. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know what books you have read this month. I really appreciate the recommendations. My TBR is probably only 100 books long, so we definitely need to add more books to that bad boy. And I will see you in the next one.